Hurricane Helene caused catastrophic damage and fatalities when it struck western North Carolina in September 2024. My guest today has written a book about that destruction and loss and about what survivors went through. In addition to Hurricane Helene, Resiliency After the Storm, Rebecca Wells Phillips has written other books under different pen names, along with short stories and poetry. So we have a lot to talk about in this episode. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me come and see you.
I'm happy to, although I understand that you are a podcast veteran. You've been on a lot of them.
Yeah, I think 15, 16.
Wow. Well, I'm the one who's honored. Now, you live in Asheville, North Carolina, so I'm going to start out with the obvious question. Were you personally affected by the hurricane?
Yes, I definitely was. Yes, I went 29 days without potable water. If you don't know what potable means, it means drinking, cooking water. So I had 29 days without that.
That's horrifying. But you were able to stay in your home?
We were in an apartment, and the apartment people were allowing us to use the pool water to flush our toilets. And then we had to get bottled water at stores and stuff. And we didn't have electricity, so it took about a week to get electricity. But after that, we were able to boil our own water.
What was your goal in writing Hurricane Helene Resiliency After the Storm?
Originally, I just wanted to catalog and take everything in that was happening because it was so new and none of us were expecting it. So I was just wanting to create a documentary type book where it's like, okay, on this day this happened, on this day that happened, and then of course intertwine my own story of what I experienced. But then after I was about 75% into completing this book, 7 months out, and then people kept telling me their story. They kept telling me what they went through. And I was like, okay, I need to start asking people if I can interview them. And so that's how that happened. I ended up pulling 15 people and putting those interviews throughout the book. And then I was like, I'm done.
And as you say, the book is based on a lot of research and numerous interviews with survivors. I was going to ask you if some people were reluctant to talk about it because it was painful for them, but it sounds like it was just the opposite.
Correct. People would tell each other about their experience in grocery store lines, gas lines, just standing outside. And so people were sharing all these stories, but until I officially asked them, they kind of kept, just kept sharing. And then whenever I asked, they're like, okay, well, cool. And so I'm like, okay. And so I would record because I had a little recorder and I would sit and listen and let them kind of tell their story. Didn't really ask a lot of questions unless there was something that needed to be questioned. And then I would go home with my recorder and I would sit on that for 24 hours because it was very painful to hear their stories. And so I'd wait 24 hours and the next day I would transcribe it. And I would end up listening to the recording about 5 times to get it exact. And then I'd have to take a day or two off because it was just very painful to hear their stories.
This sounds like a traumatic process for you, the writing of it.
Yes, yes. And I should have had therapy, and I haven't.
I I don't know. Writing is therapy to some people, so maybe doing the book itself did help you with that.
It did. It really did. It let me put my trauma on a shelf, and I was able to focus on everybody else's trauma. And then after I published the book in August of 2025, I tried to read it. To this day, I still can't read it.
Oh, that's amazing. Why not?
Well, it's almost like I relive it every time. And even though I had a publisher, an independent publisher helping me with the book, she did a lot of things that I didn't agree with. So I was constantly having to go back and re-edit the book. And then it was just a lot of things happened. And so I've tried to read it and it's like I can't.
Well, fortunately, other people are reading it. What kinds of reactions have you gotten to it?
People have been impressed with how thorough and complete it is whenever they read the stories, even if their stories aren't exactly like theirs, they understand that theirs was very similar. They are impressed with the accuracy of the information and how I made it so that anyone could pick up the book and read it and understand. And they love the photographs, even though it brings back horrible memories for many of them. I put it in color photos, and my publisher wanted me to put it in black and white to save money, but I refused. So I'm hoping that schools, like universities, high schools, will perhaps throw it into their curriculum, because I think this is something that they should be teaching about because of climate change and natural disasters that are in our future.
We're going
Before
to get to that. It sounds as if this is indeed a historical document, and
it
that
is.
is the way that you framed it.
Yes, because there's a bibliography and there are endnotes, because I want people to be able to find the sources that I used.
Did you take the pictures?
Nope. Yeah, I think during the whole thing, I think I took 3 pictures on my phone. One picture of mine is in there, but everybody else, they volunteered and sent me pictures, and I picked from those.
You know, it almost sounds like in using the pictures, in using the interviews, that you validated people's experiences. You made them feel seen, as we say these days.
Yes, yes. I didn't know that they would be so happy to be represented, but they are and they were. And like one couple, they actually bought copies of the book for everyone in their family. It was like a Christmas present or
Oh,
whatever. So I've had so much support from the people who presented, gave me the pictures and agreed to the interviews.
you say in your description of the book that within the destruction, extraordinary acts of courage and compassion began to emerge. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yes, yes, we had people who opened their homes to strangers. Some people lost their campers, mobile homes, even their houses, and people who didn't know people opened their doors and allowed people to come in if they had water, because some people were lucky enough to have water. They were able to take showers and get cleaned up. They also allowed people to wash their clothes in their wash machines. In neighborhoods where everybody lost power, they would take turns each day and pull all their food that was defrosting, and they would cook it on the grill and serve everyone in the community.
Wow.
Then you had people who risked their lives to pull people from homes or trees with their canoes, their paddle boats, or whatever they had, and they would try to get them out of the water. People rescued pets. A
Oh,
lot of
yes.
pets were running the streets, and it was just everyone came together like we were family and like we knew each other, and we didn't.
Has that good feeling continued?
Yes and no. I mean, I think I think what happens is life goes on, and as soon as things start looking like they're back to normal, then people kind of forget. But in Asheville specifically, I don't think we'll ever forget. So I think the majority of people in Asheville, they remember and they have a vision of everything that we went through, and we have it's a touristy town. So everybody comes in, and the state and the city, they don't really want you to focus on that negative occurrence, but we understand what we went through, and we know we're very fortunate to be where we are in recovery, but we are definitely not 100%. And so this was part one, and I plan to do a part two, but I feel like it's going to be at least 5 years out, to even know where we're going to end up as far
You're
as everything.
Are you waiting on part two to see how far the recovery goes or how it goes?
Yeah, I don't think I can plan it. People are like, why don't you go ahead and start planning it? And I'm like, I can't, because there are still areas like in Chimney Rock, Lake Lure, things like that that haven't been touched. And you saw the road going through the Tennessee Gorge, on the Tennessee North Carolina state line, it's still 2 lanes. Like, when are we going to have 4 lanes again? So who knows? Who knows? But I plan to do it. It's just that right now, I'm trying to heal. I think I'm trying to heal from it. And yeah, I mean, I hope to be able to read my book sometime.
Oh, I do think you bring up something really interesting when we think about recovery from severe weather events like that. And we think about rebuilding and restoring what we own or buying new things. But we don't often think about the mental trauma that goes along with having our lives completely upended.
Hmm. Yeah, because we didn't have, like I said, we didn't have water, the potable water. We had no electricity, some people longer than others. We had no internet, no cell phone coverage. So my girlfriend, I didn't know whether she was dead or alive for 3 days.
Oh, no.
So, that other people had family members that they didn't know whether they were dead or alive. And so the one thing I forgot to mention is the Chainsaw Brothers. The Chainsaw Brothers were these guys that called into the radio station, which was our only form of communication that we had available to us. And they offered to go out and rescue people from their homes because they had chainsaws and that's what they were doing. And they were cutting through trees to get to people or get, because people got trapped in their homes because of either big trees falling across their driveway or there were actually families that were stuck inside their home with trees on top of their houses. And so these guys, the Chainsaw Brothers, which now has a company, they've established a company, they went with their own money and their own equipment and they rescued people from those situations.
I hope their company does well.
I hope so too.
I have to ask you something that might seem kind of, I don't know, harsh, because I don't live in a hurricane zone. So I don't know. I'm in Michigan. No hurricanes here. No sharks in our Great Lakes either. Um, why didn't people evacuate, or why didn't more people evacuate? Because hurricanes don't come without warning, they do give notice.
Well, we did know that a storm was coming. Years and years have gone by, and a storm like that just equated to flooding, and we're used to flooding. But this was enormous because the rain that moved in 2 to 3 days prior to Hurricane Helene oversaturated the earth. We already had trees falling down before the hurricane winds came in. They downgraded it to a tropical storm. We still call it Hurricane Helene, but that is where the danger came in. It was the winds. And we're in the mountains. The mountains have always protected us. And so we did not know because we live in the mountains and all of a sudden we have an ocean in the mountains. Then you also have people who can't afford to leave. Think back to Hurricane Katrina. People didn't have cars. They were living in shacks. They were uneducated. Nobody had any savings. So what happened? They got trapped and they died or they were at that Coliseum. And then you have people who are we're human. We don't want to abandon our homes. We're prideful. We don't want help. We don't want to jump on a bus and drive to wherever. What if it's just a trickle of rain? And so, it was a combination of those 2 to 3 days of constant downpours that made it so bad. Plus, we had mudslides. Who has mudslides? Yeah, we have little mudslides, but not mudslides that take complete communities. Like in Fairview, North Carolina, there was a family of 11 that lost their lives because of a mudslide. What? 11 in one family? And they were trying to leave when it hit and they were in their cars or, getting ready to leave. And they had family members that watched it happen.
Ugh.
So
So Hurricane Helene really was unprecedented in its scope and its scale.
yes, because the last huge event that happened was in 1916. It was a flood, a flood of 1916, and it killed 80 people. However, Hurricane Helene in North Carolina right now, they have found, as far as in Western North Carolina, I think 108 bodies. And then as far as in the 6 states that were affected by Hurricane Helene, there's 227 people, bodies that they have found. But that is not, it's the official count. But we have so many homeless people that are unaccounted for, plus we didn't know they were here. And then you also have the fact that people were never found. The water took them away. Some people ended up in Tennessee, like in Irwin, all that stuff that happened in Irwin, Tennessee. So we will never know the extent of how many people lost their lives during Hurricane Helene. There are estimates of 1,000. There are estimates of 10,000. I think it's somewhere in the middle. But either way, it's bad, and we will never know the exact number.
That's the saddest part. Some people won't get answers about family members and friends and loved ones.
Mm-mm. No, and they used to make it so that you could not say someone was officially deceased for like years. Like you had to wait like 7 or 10 years or something. But because of Hurricane Helene, I think they readjusted it to 90 days. So that way people can get the insurance and do all the legal paperwork that's required to say someone is deceased or gone.
Your book raises critical questions about the growing impact of climate change and the increasing occurrence of severe weather like Hurricane Helene. Hurricanes have always happened, but they are worse.
Yes.
Does it discourage you that there are still people in this country who deny climate change?
Yes and no. You're always going to have naysayers, and you're going to also have people with conspiracy theories who think that the government caused all this to happen. It doesn't matter. Bottom line is that something happened that was of great magnitude that took people's lives. And that's all we need to worry about. That's why in my book, I have a chapter called Lessons and Preparations, and there's a list of 43 things that you can do to prepare for your own storm, emergency, or whatnot. And you also have to think about the fact that because Hurricane Helene came and took out so much of our trees, that we started having, we had fires, we had wildfires that came through, and that was kindling for those fires. So on top of flooding, we had fires. And so people lost their lives with that. So a fire can happen anywhere. So you need to be prepared. And so I always tell people, always have some cash. They suggest $100 per person. I know lots of us can't afford that, so $50 per person. Always have water, even if you store it in your closet. Always have gas in your car, at least a half a tank, if at all possible, because you may have to get in that car and escape a flood or fire, or you may end up having to live in your car because so many people are still homeless due to Hurricane Helene.
I just was listening to a radio report about the earthquake in Venezuela and a woman who ran out and she said she didn't even think to grab her asthma medication because she didn't realize it would be so hard to replace it. And it was hard. I mean, that can be life-threatening.
Yeah, we had diabetics. How do you have insulin when you have no way to refrigerate it or to get it? And whenever we didn't have electricity, ATMs didn't work. And so we would have to stand in line at the grocery store for like 45 minutes to be allowed to let 4 or 5 people go in to go shopping at a time. And you had to have cash to either get groceries or to get gas.
Ah, you are making me want to go live on the moon.
Just be
Listeners,
prepared.
it's what?
Just be prepared.
I'm so glad. I was going to ask you if you included actual resources for
Yeah,
what people should
yeah.
do, and it sounds like you really did your homework.
Well, the government created a list of, I think it was like 30 things. And so I added to them to make it, I think it was 27 in the government list, and I made it 43. And I also explained the reasoning behind each one. And there were things that they didn't come up with. And I only learned through experience.
Listeners should know that a portion of the proceeds from this book, Helene, Resiliency After the Storm, Part 1, is being donated to victims of the hurricane. So the link to buy the book is in the show notes. You've also written two autobiographies, Hating Self and Loving Self, and you've written them with a co author, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But in them, we learned that you grew up in a predominantly white town in Tennessee. You are a black woman. What was that like?
I hated the skin I was in. I wanted to disappear. I have never felt so alone in my life than when I was a child growing up in a predominantly white town because you don't fit in. You don't, this color of your skin makes you stand out. So you're obviously not Caucasian. And then I had relatives that didn't live in the city limits, but in the county, and we all went to school together. So, like in high school, there were 1,200 students in my high school. 8 of us were black. All of us were related except for two. When I graduated in my senior class, there were 362 students. Two of us were black. It was me and my cousin Regina. Um, and unfortunately, even though I had relatives and those seven black people with me. I didn't play sports. I didn't talk like them. Financially, my family was a little better off. So they kind of rejected me. They always said I was trying to be white. I sounded white. When I was in elementary school, I had this older white lady who was a school teacher, and she got me involved in 4-H. If you've heard of 4-H or FHA.
Hmm.
And the reason why she did that was because I was constantly getting in fights because people would call me the N word. So whenever those kids called me the N word, I would get in fights, and so I'd get paddled at school and then sent home to be belted at home. And so my teacher wanted to get me under control, so she took me into 4-H and got me into public speaking. So she taught me, she's a white lady from Virginia. She taught me public speaking, so therefore I talked like her. So then the black people, even relatives or strangers, feel like I'm trying to be something I'm not. And so I was rejected by people in my own race. So I was completely alone.
How are you feeling about it now?
I finally realized that what they think about me doesn't matter, and that God placed me in that situation and gave me my own burdens and my own purpose. And so anymore, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't have to fit in, I don't have to have your approval. I don't want to say I don't need anyone, but that's kind of like where I am. Like, as long as I have God in my life and I'm doing what He wants me to do, then I don't really care about anyone else.
In the emails leading up to this conversation, I did share with you that I kind of understand. When I was a teenager in my adolescence, I spent those years in a predominantly black neighborhood in Detroit, and I am white.
Yes.
And yeah, as an outlier, as other, you do get different treatment. And also, I did have to learn to speak differently
Mm-hmm.
in the neighborhood and like at school, where I was bused to a white school in the suburbs because my parents wanted a Catholic education. They were really into that. And I didn't find myself feeling at ease in either place.
No.
Even with the white people, it was like they didn't experience the same things that I had. So I didn't relate to them completely as
Mm-mm.
well as I probably should have.
Yeah.
You, I mentioned that your co-author in these autobiographies is Boo Black. Is that you?
That is me. I claimed that name because I hated being black. So it's kind of a play on words where it's like, boo, I'm black, because I hated being black so much. So I use that as my pen name for hating self and loving self. And I don't know, it's a piece of me. And even though I feel differently now and I love myself finally, I have claimed that. I've claimed that name.
Well, your second autobiography is called Loving Self. So shouldn't your co-author for that be Yay Black?
That's an idea. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You're
And
right.
then you come up with an entirely different pen name, I think.
Yes,
Rachel Blue, who wrote Butterfly Blossoms, an LGBTQ story. Looks like a romance. Is that right?
that's correct.
Why did you write under the name of Rachel Blue?
A lot of my ideas and names come from dreams. Dreams have a lot to do with what I write. And so that was one name that was given to me along with the book title. And at the time, I was still married to my husband of 32 years. And I discovered that I am lesbian. And technically, I've now discovered that apparently I'm bisexual, because I believe that you fall in love with the soul of the person and not really the vessel that holds it. So at that time, Butterfly Blossoms was almost like an extension of what I was going through when I was realizing that I was very attracted to females. And the protagonist in that story is from a snake handling Pentecostal church and strict upbringing. And so she is learning that she has always loved her best friend, Tracy. And so Rachel Blue, again, that pen name came to me in a dream. And now when I think about it, I realize that it's almost like that saying, being beat black and blue. But I spell blue, BLEU.
in a French sort of way.
Yes, yes,
You've mentioned your faith and how important it was to you, or it is to you, I should say,
yes.
and especially how it helped you to love yourself. Is your faith, though, a problem with your sexuality? There are some Christians, especially in this country, who don't think that being gay, being a lesbian,
Hmm.
is in
Christian.
keeping with being a Christian.
Yeah, yeah. It's For me, it's not a problem because I know that I have a relationship with God and that when I go, I will be judged by Him. I pray that I'm not wrong, but I believe that as long as you love someone, that love is the greatest gift, the greatest commandment, that I think he would look past that. Like, I don't think that's the important part. It's how you treat another person, how you respect another person, and if you love someone with all your heart, how can that be wrong?
What is next for you in terms of your writing? And let me point out something I should have said earlier. You've got a degree, a college degree in both journalism and creative writing, don't you?
Yes, English literature and broadcast journalism from
So,
Carson.
wow, it all comes together. What is next? What's your next project?
Well, right now I'm submitting to literary agents because I would like to be able to publish the next book traditionally. And so Butterfly Blossoms was the first book, but Dragonfly Passion is the second book of Rachel Blue. And it is complete, and I've been submitting to literary agents for that one. But right now I'm working on under Rebecca Wells Phillips, my legal name. It's called Lift Our Voice, Abuse Survivors Speak Their Truth. And I've been interviewing people who have experienced different types of abuse, whether it's verbal, sexual, physical, whatever you could name it. And so that book again would like to publish traditionally. I would love to be able to do it through Simon and Schuster because a lot of the research that is explaining perhaps why men batter women and alcoholism and all this is coming out from Simon and Schuster, and I just think it would go really well with their books that they put out. So that's my plan right now.
Do you hear that, Simon and Schuster? Pay attention. She's got a great book coming out. It does sound like you are on one unending journey of self-discovery. Do you anticipate that that will continue to inform your writing?
Yes, because I have embraced the idea of turning pain into purpose, which is not just my pain, it's other people's pain. And so I know that when I wrote Hating Self, that was a healing book for me. And I've had other readers say the same, even though they weren't, say, black being mistreated by whites, they had other things that were so similar that they knew exactly what I was saying. And I wrote that book to show people that they're not alone. None of us are alone, and that we all have our own pain and our own burdens, but we're supposed to take that pain and help others. And so that's my goal, is to get people to realize, don't disappear. Don't feel like you need to leave. You need to take that pain and help someone else.
My last question, I ask this of all of my guests. What advice would you give to other writers?
I got three things. Okay. So, do you know the movie Finding Nemo with Dory?
Yes.
How Dory just kept saying, just keep swimming. So, that's what I always tell writers in different groups I belong to, just keep swimming. Don't give up. Secondly, believe in yourself, even if someone else doesn't. Don't expect other people to embrace your dreams. They're your dreams, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And then the last one was, let's see, understand. Understand your purpose. Understand why you're going through what you're going through and why God or whomever you believe in has placed this burden on your heart, and find a way to turn that into something meaningful.
Thank you, Rebecca. It has been a genuine pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.